The story begins in 1995 with Margaret White, a deeply religious woman, experiencing intense pain, thinking she is dying. Instead, she unknowingly gives birth to a baby girl, Carrie. Initially, she tries to kill the child but ultimately decides to keep her. Fast forward to the present, Carrie White, now a shy and bullied high school senior in Castle Rock, Maine, faces relentless torment from her classmates. During gym class, she accidentally hits Sue Snell with a volleyball, making her a target for Chris Hargensen and the other girls. Later, in the shower, Carrie gets her first period and panics, not understanding what is happening. Instead of helping, the girls humiliate her, throwing tampons at her and filming the incident. Ms. Desjardins intervenes, but the trauma triggers Carrie's telekinetic abilities. Carrie's mother, Margaret, punishes her by forcing her into a prayer closet. Meanwhile, Chris, furious over being banned from prom due to her actions, plots revenge. Meanwhile, Sue, feeling guilty, convinces her boyfriend, Tommy Ross, to take Carrie to prom as an act of kindness. At first, Carrie is suspicious, but she eventually accepts Tommy's invitation and begins to embrace her powers. As prom night approaches, Chris and her boyfriend Billy Nolan break into a farm, kill a pig, and collect its blood for their cruel prank. Carrie, despite her mother's warnings, stands up for herself and forces Margaret to let her go. At prom, she enjoys herself, but Chris and her friends execute their plan. This sets the stage for the infamous prom night tragedy, where Carrie's telekinetic rage will be unleashed. A slow song comes on and Tommy convinces Carrie to dance with him. He teaches her how to slow dance and she quickly learns. Carrie puts her head on his shoulder then backs away. Something crosses Tommy's face when that happens. While he is still obviously loyal to Sue, he is starting to grow some feelings for Carrie due to her being such a sweet person. Carrie, still unsure about his intentions, asks why he asked her to prom. Tommy says that he wanted to and is having a good time with her and hopes she is feeling the same way. Carrie nods yes. Tommy then says they will enjoy their time here, then they can go to an after party and he will have back home on time. Carrie smiles, agrees, and notes that she can maybe stay out till 11. Thanks to Chris's friend Tina, Billy and Chris break into the prom and sit in the rafters waiting. They hand off ballots to Tina's date, Greg Delois, who switches them out to rig the prom king and queen election to ensure Carrie and Tommy are elected. The voting for prom king and queen begins. Carrie questions voting for herself, but Tommy tells her there isn't much to it, and she should have one chance to be in the spotlight. Carrie notes that the crowns are beautiful. The devil with false modesty, Tommy says. Carrie is convinced, so they vote for themselves. Meanwhile, Chris's friends switch out the ballots to rig them in Tommy and Carrie's favor. Chris texts on her cell phone to Sue while Sue is getting out of the shower. She says, "Your girl looks good." She won't for long. Horror washes over Sue's face. She knew Chris was vindictive, but not to this extent. Sue realizes that Chris has planned something horrifying to humiliate Carrie, and races to prom to try to stop her. Chris seems to have second thoughts for a moment. Billy reminds her that what they are doing is criminal assault, and they need to flee the second they are done. Meanwhile, Sue gets to the building but can't get in. She sees someone open the door and sneaks in. The ballots are counted. Tommy and Carrie win. Carrie is stunned but happy. They walk up to the podium with everyone applauding. Ms. Desjardins, Mr. Ullman, and Principal Grail are especially happy for Carrie, glad to see that she has finally got her moment in the sun. Sue looks around and sees Chris in the rafters. Chris sees Sue looking at her. She hesitates momentarily, but Billy goads her on to pull the rope. Ms. Desjardins sees Sue and misconstrues her reasons for being there and throws her out of the building without hearing her warning. Chris pulls the rope. Although the rope jams and forces Chris to pull on it several times, it eventually gives way and the pig blood cascades down and drowns Carrie in it. Complete and utter silence follows. What the hell? Tommy yells at everyone, having and wanting no part in this unbelievable act of cruelty. Chris has hacked the video monitors and using her iPhone, plays Carrie's period video. Most of the class laughs, but Ms. Desjardins, along with a few others, are in complete shock. Chris and Billy rig the rope and begin to flee, but Chris wants to stick around and see Carrie squirm. The rope, however, gives way and the pail that held the blood cracks Tommy on the back of the head, killing him instantly. Ms. Desjardins goes to Carrie, but Carrie pushes her back with her powers, startling everyone. Carrie turns back around and cradles his head in her lap. She turns to the guests, as the blood on her body starts to levitate off it. Carrie finally loses control and violently pushes the entire crowd back. One of the girls, Heather, is thrown across the room and has her head smashed into a closed door. The gym is in flames. Students scramble to escape as Carrie, consumed by rage, turns her powers on those who tormented her. She forces Tina into the fire, watching as the flames consume her. Ms. Desjardins pleads for mercy. Carrie lifts her in a forced choke but spares her, the only one who ever showed her kindness. Then, Carrie levitates out as the school burns. Meanwhile, Chris and Billy flee in their car. Panic sets in, but Chris, still blinded by hatred, orders Billy to run Carrie down. As he accelerates, Carrie stops the car with her mind. Billy's head snaps back violently, he dies instantly. Chris awakens, bloodied but determined. She slams the gas again. Carrie effortlessly lifts the car, sending Chris crashing through the windshield, glass embedding in her face. With a final spark from a fallen power line, the gas ignites. Boom! The car explodes in a fiery blast, sealing their fate. Carrie watches the flames, then turns away. Her vengeance is far from over. Carrie gets into the bathtub and cleans off all the blood, changing into a blue nightgown. She finds Margaret and tells her she was right about everything. They hug and Margaret suggests they pray. As they pray, Margaret takes her butcher knife and stabs Carrie once in the back. Carrie then pushes her mother back as she falls down the stairs. Their fight continues in the kitchen as Carrie begs her mother to stop what she is doing. "You know a devil never dies. You gotta keep killing it," Margaret says, manic. They struggle and she slices Carrie on the leg and arm. When she tries to stab Carrie in the face, Carrie stops the blade with her powers and then pulls up numerous sharp objects and points them in her mother's direction. Telling her she is sorry, Carrie lets them fly, and they impale her mother to the wall as if in a crucifix-like pose. Carrie, horrified by what she has done, releases the blades that pin her mother to the wall. Margaret dies moments later in Carrie's lap. Carrie cries at the loss. Moments later, Sue arrives at the house. Carrie is angry with her, saying she just killed her mother and she wants her back. "Why couldn't you leave me alone?" Carrie asks. Sue says she tried to help her. Carrie puts Sue in a forced chokehold as the house begins to collapse around them due to her powers becoming uncontrollable. "Don't hurt me, Carrie," Sue pleads. "Why not?" Carrie snarls. Then, Carrie puts Sue down. Sue tries to reach for Carrie so they can escape. Carrie places her hand near Sue's stomach. "It's a girl," Carrie says. Sue looks at her in shock. "You don't know?" Carrie asks. Carrie pushes her out of the house. Sue watches as rocks come out of nowhere and fall directly on the house, collapsing it on itself. Carrie holds her mother and kisses her forehead as the house finally falls down on the both of them. Sue looks on in horror and gingerly touches her stomach. An undisclosed time later, Sue is giving a deposition in front of the whole town. As to her pregnancy subplot, Sue then later visits Carrie at her grave. She puts flowers and prays for her as Carrie White burns in hell written on her grave. Sue is later in a hospital, giving birth, but a bloodied hand comes out of her belly. She was shocked in horror. In reality, we see Sue writhes in pain as the time of her baby's birth arrives. Carrie was just a normal girl with normal hopes and desires like everyone else, and they pushed her, and when people get pushed, eventually they break. They broke Carrie White. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.